6. Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. An alternate reading from the Message is, point your kids in the right direction. When they're old, they won't be lost. Acts 2:42. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. In Matthew 22:36-40. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment of all? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law of the prophets hang on these 2 commandments.
I wanted to start this day by sharing some memories from my childhood with my mom. And so here we go. I just want to share a few of these. These are just different things that happened along the way. And as I thought about these are all things that happened when I was very young, because I recall them happening in a particular house, and we moved away from that house when I was in 2nd grade, so it's less than 2nd grade. There was one day when I put a butterscotch hard candy in my mouth and ran out the door to play and hopped on my bike, and I don't know if I had my mouth open or what, but that candy went right down. And I remember I turned my bike around and I ran in the house and I went, oh, and she said, she knew what had happened, and she said, you can breathe, you're talking. She said, now sit down. That candy will melt eventually. You just need to sit down, calm down, and we'll wait. And she sat with me. She sat with me. She sat with me. And we waited. And that day, my mom taught me patience. On another day, my mom is a singer, and so she finished a degree in music, vocals, when I was very young. And as part of the finishing of that degree, she had to give a big recital. And of course, I was this little girl, and I'll never forget that the hall that she had to give this recital in seemed massive, and it was packed, and I thought, I can't believe she can do this. And she was dressed up in one of those real shiny, fancy dresses, and I thought she was my princess mom. And she leaned over that night before she went up, and she kissed me on the forehead. And she said, I love you. She taught me that day that she would never be too important for me, and that I was special. Whoa. On another day, you'll see a candy theme running through these. Both my mom and I like candy. We were at a candy store, and of course, as a little girl, I looked at all the candy possibilities, and I started picking out all the possible things that I wanted. And my mom said, "You may have one." And of course, I fought her on it, and I wanted to let her know that I needed more than one. And the longer I fought, the more I realized that if I didn't pick one, I might lose even that. And so I picked one. And the one that I picked, and I still remember what it was Chuckles. And if you want to put that up. And I don't know if you all remember Chuckles, but I remember we went home that day, and it only had 5 candies in it. And I was trying to figure out, I don't see those around much anymore, and I was thinking about that this morning. I thought, I think the reason we don't see them is it actually sold them in a serving size. You know, nowadays you see that there's 5 servings per container and eat all of them, or whatever. Anyway, I remember taking those candies and eating them on little bitty bites. And because I wanted it to last as long as it could last. And on that day, my mom taught me self-restraint and discipline. My mom is very talkative in our family. My mom and my dad and my sister and I, she's the most talkative one. So at dinner time, we always sat around the table, and she always had stories to share from the day, and she always had questions and asked us all about our days. And I noticed she laughed a lot, and I noticed that she laughed a lot at herself. She would make a joke, and it would be on her. And she taught me and us to love life. It's good to laugh, and it's good to laugh at yourself once in a while. Last one. I remember one day, must have been a spring day, I was out in the backyard and I was picking dandelions for my mom. They seemed like a nice flower at the time. And I picked a bouquet of dandelions, and I went up to my mom and I gave her the dandelions, and she received them very graciously, and she put them in a glass filled with water. And then I saw the neighbors had tulips. And I thought that would be a nice gift for my mom. And so I said, Mom, I'm going to go get those tulips for you because that would be extra special. And she said, those are not ours, Lori. And I looked around and I said, well, nobody's looking. She said, Lori, we do the right thing whether someone is looking or not. And that day she taught me integrity. We could all probably go on and on with these kinds of little anecdotes. And I guess I will just say thank you to all of you who are moms and grandmas and aunts and role models and teachers, and just thank you to all of you for the hundreds of thousands of millions of ways that you're shaping the next generation. Happy Mother's Day. As Brian mentioned a little bit ago, I always realize on Mother's Day that we come here on Mother's Day with as many different situations as there are people in the room. We have folks who have lost their moms, and so this is a day, as he said, kind of a bittersweet day of remembering, of being thankful. We have moms who are struggling. Actually, that's probably most of us. We have folks whose moms do not live anywhere close, and so maybe you'll be given a phone call today, and actually you better be given a phone call today if you can. We have folks who have rough relationships, either with your mom or maybe as a mom with your kids. And it hurts. And you haven't been able to see through how to get through that. We have folks who are moms and you're exhausted. We have folks who are not moms, but you're role models in many ways. We have stepmoms, foster moms. We can go on with different kinds of situations. And I always come to this day and think there's really no way to speak specifically to all of these situations. But there are ways of sharing a message that applies to all of us. And so this week, I thought I'd talk about be the one. Be the one. Be the one that you dream that next generation will be. And again, this actually applies to men, women, applies to all of us as we look at the kids in our lives. And they may be our own kids, they may be somebody else's kids, a good friend's kids, they may be the neighbor kids, they may be our grandkids, they may be the kids of this church, they may be, whatever it might be. But as adults, we are the role models for the next generation. So be the one. Be the one that makes a difference in a life. Be the one, as it says in Proverbs, that starts children off, that points that generation in the way they should go. So this is our challenge for today, and I wanted to start by looking at Proverbs, and we'll look at these different passages, and just so you know, if you want to have all the scripture passages before you, they're on a pink insert, so feel free to get that out, make notes on it if you'd like to have that before you. Proverbs 22:6, as Brian said, we have two different versions here. And I did that because it's, I think, helpful to kind of digest what it's saying. The New International Version says, start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. And we can all think of situations where we say, yeah, this is true. You know, you see these set of parents, they seem to be doing all the right things, their kids seem to follow in their footsteps, and it's pretty awesome to see that. But the thing is, sometimes we see situations where it doesn't look like that's the case. And so we say, well, these parents seem to be doing a really great job, but their kids have strayed, what's the deal there? You know, and if you look at this passage, it doesn't say, if you're a perfect parent, everything will go well, because we're not perfect. I was able to shatter that myth about when my oldest was probably a day old. You know, you realize that you're just not perfect, and you can't be perfect, and you've tried. And so then it's kind of like, well, where's the line? How do you know if you're starting them off right? And I looked at the Message paraphrase, and it was very helpful to understand this verse. It says, point your kids in the right direction, and when they're old, they won't be lost. I thought about that, and I thought, my parents are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not a perfect parent by any stretch of the imagination. But my parents generally pointed me in the right direction. Some of those things that I mentioned. They gave me, I like to think of it as an internal compass. And so, now, had you looked at me or met me when I was about 20 years old, you would have said, what happened there? She's messed up. Look at her parents and look at her. And what happened? She like fell off the deep end. And many of you know that was my story. And so you would have looked at this proverb and said, it didn't work for her. and yet, had you looked at me the way God did and looked at my heart, you would have seen something different. You would have seen that even though outwardly I had turned my back on the church, turned my back on God, was partying, was doing this, that, and the other, self-centered to the max. But inside, I knew that I needed to be pointed in a different direction. There was something in me. And so even though I looked lost, I wasn't. I always knew the direction I was going. And so point our kids in the right direction when they're old, they won't be lost. They won't be lost. So we have, as adults who follow Jesus, the greatest privilege and awesome responsibility of preparing the way for the next generation. And there's a poem. It's called A Child's Appeal. It's written from the perspective of a child. And in the poem, it basically says, I'm here, world, and now I need your help. And so from this child's perspective, it basically says, I need your encouragement, I need your teaching, I need your inspiration, I need your guidance. And then the last line of the poem says, again, from a child's perspective, train me, I beg you, that I may be a blessing to the world. That's our challenge, to be the one to make a difference in the next generation. So I wanted to look at these scripture passages and just talk through 3 areas where we can be the one. And know that you won't be perfect at it, and you haven't probably been perfect at it, and that's okay. First one, share with the next generation a strong sense of commitment to Christ and His church. We can give our kids all sorts of things. We can give them lots of stuff. We can give them whatever, cool clothes, even cars. But there's one gift that is the most important, and that is the gift of Jesus Christ. And I was trying to think of this expression all week, and I finally remembered it. Faith is caught, not taught. meaning you can teach, and my mom did teach, but it wasn't until I saw it that I got it and experienced it. And so really, the question for each one of us as followers of Christ are, and look at Acts 2:42, we call ourselves an Acts 2 church. And this is the first verse of that passage. And this is the church and the followers of Christ right in the beginning in the church. The picture of the church before we messed it up and we started being self-centered and everything we are. They devoted themselves. Devoted themselves. And it's good to ask ourselves, am I really devoted? I mean, is this the most important thing in my life? Jesus, God, going in His direction. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to Scripture, basically. And I know how the Scripture reading goes. I know that we get busy and we lose track of time and we don't have time for that. And so this is our reminder, get back into the Word. Kids are watching. To fellowship. That is not just fun events, but fellowship, koinonia, is our connection with one another. And our willingness to be real with each other. And to be authentic with each other. And say, you know what, I messed up. And I need Jesus. It's fellowship. Breaking of bread. We have Holy Communion. We offer that to Him. Prayer. Again, we get so busy. It's so easy to slide past these. But we have another generation that's watching us. So that's the best gift that we can give. I say very often to parents and grandparents and role models, the best gift you can give is to make yourself love Jesus so much. Because that is caught. There's a story I ran across this week, and it was about a 16-year-old girl in Los Angeles. This was several years ago, actually. And this girl, during the course of being 16 and making some choices she shouldn't have at that age, she found herself expecting a child. And by the way, this bouquet of flowers is for our We Care ministry, and it notes the babies that are born this year in that ministry to teen moms as we try to help them finish their schooling. And she was a little afraid because her mom was a strong Christian, and so she wasn't sure how her mom would react. And fearful, she decided she would run away. And actually, she got on a bus, and her plan, and I don't know how well thought out it was, but her plan was just to get on the bus and end it all. I don't know the details. And she tells the story later. She said she gets on the bus, and she hears a voice say, "Don't do this." And she looks around, and there's two people sleeping and one person reading. She's like, who said that? She hears again, "Don't do this." And she gets off the bus, and she goes home, tells her mom everything. And her mom holds her and cries with her and talks with her. And she tells her, you know, that voice was Jesus. And Jesus has a plan for that baby. So that 16-year-old girl gave her life to Jesus, raised that child as best she could, and he became a pastor of a very influential church. And he tells this story of how Jesus saved his life. But the point was, you know what, we all have these situations in our lives, and most of us think we're the only ones who do. Situations that are messed up, and we don't know what to do with it. But God brings something beautiful if we let Him. And you know, in the midst of our broken lives, when we give our lives to Jesus, our kids see that. And it's okay to be broken. They just need to see that we're real. All right, so commitment to Christ and the church. That's the first gift we can give to the next generation. The second one is a strong sense of self-esteem. Strong sense of self-esteem. And how do you best give a child a sense of self-worth and self-esteem? You give that by loving them. spending time with them, by telling them how awesome they are. I have two stories I want to tell you of things that happened this week. Actually, the first one happened a week ago today. We were on Sunday afternoon taking our usual lunch to the south end, where many of you know we have a ministry on Sunday afternoons. We just bring lunch, we circle up, have a prayer with anybody in the neighborhood who comes, and then we have lunch and have a short teaching, and then a lot of fellowship. And for whatever reason, this is the first time it's been really nice out, so we are back in the park instead of inside a building. And for whatever reason, we had lots of kids. And so we circled up, started to have prayer, and before we have the prayer, I always say, are there any joys or concerns? And people were sharing their joys and concerns, and one little girl was holding the hands of the people next to her, and she said, pray for this girl right here, because she's new in the neighborhood and she hardly has any friends. And I said, well, we'll be your friend. It just touched my little heart. And, but then this one really got me. A little boy, many of you know Wayne Holland of this church, and he's often, usually down there Sunday afternoon. The little boy looked over when she said that, and he said, oh, don't worry, Mr. Wayne will be your friend. He's everybody's friend. And if you know Wayne, and if you've seen him, you know, he walks in that neighborhood and kids follow behind him and they're always tagging along. He usually comes Sunday afternoon, there's usually a few kids running after him. And I always think, and by the way, he started a tutoring ministry. Some of you are part of the tutoring ministry in the South End, and various other ministries. And I believe the kids there, kids generally here, they stand a little taller. They feel a little bit more hope because of the encouragement. It's very important gift that we give them. Another little story that I share from this week, Joyce Atwood from this congregation, she was in a small group setting with me earlier this week, and we were sharing different things, and she was sharing that she always tries to lift people up. And if you know Joyce, you know that this is true. She's always saying, you look so nice today, and you look, you know, and I'm so proud of you. And if a kid gets on the honor roll, she's usually read it in the paper, and she says, congratulations, good job. And she's always like that. And I have, as she was telling me that she likes to do that, I was thinking, yeah. And I was thinking about, particularly with kids, the times that I've witnessed her doing that. And I'll tell you what, I've talked with some of those kids, and it meant everything. They stood taller, they felt good about themselves, they felt like they were worthwhile and valuable. Great gift that we can give the next generation is a sense of self-esteem. A couple of things that I wanted to say along those lines. First of all, I'm always meeting adults who struggle because they didn't have this growing up. They may not have had somebody telling them how beautiful, wonderful, and awesome that they are. I always say it's never too late to understand that about you. It's never too late to know you are an awesome child of the Most High God. And the other thing I just wanted to mention under this point is we've been doing some strategic planning in our church, and you see each week these brainstorm ideas and lots of possibilities, and sometime pretty soon we're going to have to narrow this all down, but the whole kind of vein of thinking has been, you know, expanding our tutoring ministry and partnering with the schools and all sorts of possibilities on how we can be a light to the next generation. So those are all kind of before us and possibilities. Okay, so share with the next generation a strong sense of commitment to Christ and His church, a strong sense of self-esteem. And the last one is share with them love and respect for other people. And again, this is why I included, and you'll see there are certain scripture passages I put a lot, like the great commandment. It is called the greatest commandment. And so that one's going to show up a lot because it encompasses kind of the whole message of our faith. The great commandment, if you get nothing else, get this, says Jesus, love God and love people. And that is, you know, one of those messages. Get that across to the next generation. We love God and we love people. We can get that to the next generation by loving them and also by demonstrating that we love other people. Two stories here. First of all, you have all seen in the news in the last couple of weeks the rioting that was happening in Baltimore. And I'll bet you all saw the story of the mom. And she saw her 16-year-old boy, only son, and even though he had a mask on and was completely covered up, she knew it was him. I was telling my kids, I got eyes in the back, side, and every part of my head. And she saw, and when she was interviewed, she said, and I lost it. And parents, you know what it feels like to watch your kids and say, and just kind of lose it and say, this is wrong, this is not what you are supposed to be. And so she went out there, and now you could debate, and a few have, about her methodology. But, I mean, bottom line was, she went out there and she hit him and she tore his mask off, and she said he was basically saying, Mom, 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 okay, Mom. Can you just picture this? And the bottom line was, and she was called Mom of the Year. She was called by her pastor Mom of the Century. The bottom line was, she was teaching her child that we don't fight injustice with more injustice. She wanted to teach him, and you know, sometimes it's correction and discipline, isn't it? Sometimes it is. But hopefully, it's not only correction and discipline. Hopefully, we also have the positive role model of what it looks like to love. And so, one last story. This week, or actually a couple weeks ago now, I was driving along and I stopped and I started to talk to somebody, and I rolled down my window, and I don't know what I drove over, but a bunch of bees flew into my car. And so, I mean, I had to get out, open all the doors to get out. I'm not sure what happened there, but it reminded me of a story along those lines. And the story is, there was a mom and her daughter, and they were driving in a car, similar situation, spring day, windows were down, bee comes in. Now this daughter was deathly allergic to bees. So literally, if the bee stung her, she could die in an hour. It was that serious. So understandably, this bee comes in the car, and she's very upset, she's panicking. Mom, Mom, there's a bee, there's a bee! And Mom, in one swipe of the hand, grabs the bee and holds it and waits for the inevitable, painful sting. And when that happens, she lets it go. The daughter says, Mom, Mom, and she says it's okay, and she shows her hand, and she says, the stinger is in my hand. It'll be all right, it can't sting you. And kind of what I was talking about earlier. More than her mom telling her what it looks like to love people, she experienced it. She experienced what it is like for someone to love her. And that's the best way that we'll teach. So be the one. Be the one. Share the next generation the strong sense of those three things: commitment to Christ and His church, a strong sense of self-esteem, and you do that by loving kids, and love and respect for other people. And by the way, there are always lots of opportunities on that sign-in card for loving our kids here. And I'd be a bad pastor not to point that out right now. And, you know, please consider being a part of our children's ministry if that's something that you're able or called to do. Our kids are our future, they are our legacy. We love them. I wanted to close with a video, and you know, sometimes when we talk about all this stuff, we think this is too much, and I've already failed 100 times over, and we get frustrated. And because we're not perfect, and we'll just never be perfect in this side of heaven as parents. So this is a good video that maybe reminds you that maybe you're better than you think. Close with this and then prayer.
I'm a perfectionist, and so that's hard with kids. There's definitely days when I have my doubts about my abilities. I struggle with my temper. I struggle with how I react with situations. I wish I knew how to, I guess, just calm myself before speaking to them. I wish I was better at taking time to sit down and just listen more to my child. I wish I was more confident in being a mom. I'm not the most patient person in the world.
Patience is far and away probably the biggest struggle.
I just want them to know just how much I love them.
My mom is totally awesome. She's fun to snuggle with. Pretty, funny. She does cook a lot of food for me. She's just unique. That's why I love her so much. We go on dates together. Like, we go shopping. She loves me a lot. I have a lot of favorite things about my mom. We like to watch movies together and color and stuff.
We go to church together, we volunteer together. She is like my heart, I guess you could say, because she's that close to me.
My favorite thing is to jump on a trampoline with my mom. That's my most favorite thing, to go up high. We get ice cream or something, and you go to the nail salon and have fun. My mommy's my hero. She's pretty and beautiful.
She is my hero.
She just will care about me and just always love me forever. She's the best.
That's so awesome.
I always seem to focus mostly on the negative, and I guess I can walk out here and say that I'm doing something great, and that my child is viewing me totally different lenses as I view myself. So that's inspiring.
This is my calling. This is my job. This is what I love to do, and I will do it better and with love each and every day, because those kids count on me and they love me for what I'm doing.
All right, let's have a time of prayer, and then I'll invite